Alright, so let's adjust our design for the wide viewport a little more. Let's increase the size of both our tagline and our H1 heading here. Let's increase the size of both. We're going to make the H1 a lot bigger, and we're going to make the tagline just a little bit bigger so they scale proportionally in design. So let's go over to our Sublime text. We want to work only in the widest viewport, so we're going to choose the media query for our wide viewport. That's the one at media with min width of 800 pixels or bigger. Let's come down under our features article rule and just write a new rule for this. We're going to say for a tag selector for our H1, let's write a couple of curly braces, and inside we're just going to go font size and increase the font size for H1 to 80 pixels. And let's save that. And let's preview that in our browser to see if we get our increase in our H1 heading. Cool, that's looking much better. Now let's work on our tagline, which is the paragraph right after the H1. It's the magical musical sounds for your songs. Let's make that a little bigger as well. So we're going into Sublime again, and we're going to write a new tag selector after our H1, after the closing curly brace, a whole new tag selector in the media query for the wide viewport. We're going to say for the H1, let's use the paragraph right after the H1 so we can designate that H1 plus P. So that's going to use the paragraph that follows directly after the H1. And let's look at our HTML further down in our document. And here's our H1. So we're going to H1 and only the paragraph that follows it. That's why we're using the H1 plus P. It's going to address just that one paragraph right after it, and it's only going to do it in the wide viewport. So let's put our curly braces in and write our declarations for our new rule. Let's go font size. Let's increase that to about 30 pixels. We don't need to make it huge like the H1, but we do need to increase that size. So after our first declaration, let's save that and look at that in our browser. And that's great. We've increased the size of our tagline. But let's go in and let's work with the margins. I want to move that a little bit closer to the top. I want to move the top of the magical music sounds for your songs closer to the bottom of the Welcome to Jasco effects. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take off some of my top margin for this piece of text. So you can use negatives in margins as well as positives. Remember, in the box model we have margin, which is the space outside of an item. We have the padding, which is the distance between content and a box, and we have the border. We're working with the space between the outside of two items. I want to reduce the top margin of my paragraph that's right below my H1. So I'm going to go margin. And the first thing I'm going to code is -5px. That's for the top. The next thing I'm going to put in a 0. And that's going to count for my right and left. If you only put that in right and left. And then I want to add more space between the tagline and the paragraph of body text that's in the banner right below it. So I'm going to add 80 pixels of margin. So let's save that. And what we're going to do now is look at this. So I want to make the magical musical sounds for your songs. I want to reduce the top margin of this so it goes up, but I'm also going to increase the margin between the bottom of the magical musical sounds for your songs and the body paragraphs. So if I refresh that, you can see we reduced this space and we increased this space using margin.